Hello everyone. Today we will be starting with asynchronous programming exceptions and aggregate exception. So, in asynchronous programming, exception will not be thrown until they are awaited. The task object holds the exception thrown in task.Exception property and then throws it when it is awaited. This property is of type System.AggregateException because there is a possibility as we are having multiple tasks running, so we can get multiple exception thrown, and because one or more exception can be thrown during this work, exception thrown are added to AggregateException.InnerException. It is a collection where each exception is added and we can fetch it at later stage to see what has gone wrong. Now, what are the common scenarios that can occur? Generally, only one we can maximum number of the time we will only see only one exception that is being thrown, and that is stored in the System.AggregateException always, and it will be rethrown. So let's see its example. What will happen generally? We will consider the example from our breakfast code. So if we go to our breakfast code, here, what I have tried is I have attached a try catch block when I am basically awaiting those tasks. And now, what I am expecting is, let's say, what if I get multiple exceptions? Sorry, not multiple, but single exception thrown. Let's say while doing the while cooking, while toasting the bread, I got exception that toaster caught on fire, and because of that, we are not able to complete our breakfast. So we will catch that exception and log that exception. If we run this now, these are the logs that we are able to see. Okay, so I have just printed toaster caught on fire. What I will be doing is instead of ex.message, I will be just running the whole exception, printing the whole exception. So yeah, if you can see, it is a System.Exception that we have thrown that toaster caught on fire, and it is basically just giving us various information about it. But if you see here, we cannot see System.AggregateException anywhere here. That is because as it has only one exception, so that gets rethrown automatically by the compiler, and it is not showing us at System.AggregateException, and inside that System.AggregateException another exception as System.Exception. So this is the common scenario. We will not be able to see the System.AggregateException directly in the logs, but this behavior behind the scene is working like we have when this System.Exception is thrown, it gets added into the collection of AggregateException.InnerException. So that is the thing that is happening behind the curtain. So yeah, this behavior makes working with asynchronous method as similar possible to working with synchronous counterpart. You can examine the exception property in your code when your scenario generate multiple exception. So we will see what if we generate multiple exception, then what will happen. But how will we be able to get that? How will we be able to understand if our code is generating multiple exception? Because what we can think is as soon as first exception gets generated and it is awaited, we will get that exception, right? But there is a way, WhenAll. That is why I have taught WhenAll in the last video. So WhenAll is a method that waits for all task execution to complete. So it will wait for all task execution to complete. And once we get all the exception, we will be getting aggregate exceptions from it. And once aggregate exception is we get aggregate exception, we will be iterating through each exception and printing it. So this is how we can get multiple exception from the multiple tasks. So if I run this task now, oh, okay, this is running just a previous. I have to write my latest console app. If you see its logs, I just have to continue, I guess. Okay, what I can do is I will just add console.readline. so that it will wait for me to view that console. It has started in debug mode, so it has occurred. First exception is occurred. It will second exception is occurred, and now if we see here, all exceptions are printed here. Caught exception, invalid operation exception, and then we have value not cannot be null exception. So that is how we have iterated through each exception and shows the log of exception that has occurred. So yeah, this is it. Now, we will be deep diving into what is an aggregate exception. It is a special type of exception in C# that can contain multiple exceptions. It is commonly used in asynchronous programming and parallel processing to represent the collection of errors that occur during the execution of multiple tasks. Example, this is the example that I have shown you just now to handle multiple exception. And best practice is to iterate through inner exception to log those exception. And we can also use, because there can be a scene that, as the asynchronous programming is can be nested, right? So inner task throws multiple exception, then outer task throws multiple exception. So in that case, we can use flatten method on that collection to get the all the task in just a single list. So that's it for this video. What we have seen in this video is how to deal with exception in async programming, and also aggregate exception, how it works and how we can catch multiple exceptions at any point of time if they are thrown. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys.